Hello, my name is Quantum Turtle 13. I am going to be running SSX 3 100%. This will be my submission video for GDQ. So quick few just administrative notes off the top. I will be running this game without the in-game music and without the in-game DJ Atomka, playing. That is for stream purposes. That tends to get hit by copyright strikes. So for the purposes of this recording, I will be doing it without that music. As for the logistics of doing that during an actual marathon, that can be discussed later if this run gets accepted. So a few other administrative things. Go over a couple incentive ideas for donation incentives. First of all, file name. If you go to the save screen, or the save file here, you can change your file name. That can be whatever we want it to be. Plenty of fun ideas there. Second idea, now that I got my sound fixed, if you go to, 100% is ran in the Conquer the Mountain category or menu option. That's pretty much where the entire game is. You also have single event. We are not going to be using this, but if you go into single event, what you can do is you can use a cheat code, which allows you to unlock some of the cosmetic options in the game, which is why I have a Mac that does not look like the normal character. And you can choose all these different options, so these could be some fun donation incentives as well, getting the audience to choose if they want Pumpkinhead or a paper bag or stuff like that. So this is my default character. That's what I'll be running with today. Alright, with that out of the way, I think we'll just get started. 3, 2, 1, go. Alright. So, so this is 100%. 100% in this game is I loaded the wrong file. Excuse me real quick. That was a mistake on my part. I loaded my practice file. I need to reload my actual run file. Apologies for that. Alright. Try that again. So, in 100% of this for SSX3, it is defined pretty specifically. If we go into the transport menu, this all mountain screen is where our progress lives. Right now we're at 0%. By the end of this, we'll be getting to 100%. So there's a couple things that make up 100%. To start, we have these big challenges. So each track in the game has a few big challenges. These are like little side quest things. And we will also be collecting some snowflakes, as they are known. These are in-game collectibles. There are about 450, I believe, of them. And so you notice we start in happiness, as this track is known. That is just where the game loads us when the file opens, so to take advantage of not having to skip any, or not having to load the track more than necessary, we start here. So we're just going to be getting a couple of the big challenges and snowflakes out of the way here. We're not actually going to be getting all of them out of the way. That will become apparent later as to why. This is a unique track where we're actually kind of splitting it up into two segments. Most of the tracks we will not be doing that, at least as far as big challenges go. There we go. So we are going to be starting with no stats. I'm sure it might not be terribly obvious if you have not played SSX 3 before, but if you have seen runs of it, or if you've played in the past, it might seem like the character is moving a little sluggish. That's because we don't have stats. We're going to be spending the first about a quarter of the run to a third, at least as far as progress goes, getting enough money to buy the stats we need. Now, we don't actually need to buy all of the stats. If you saw on the start screen, there was a couple bars. I think it's 7 different stats that are available. They range from 0 to 11 in what you can have. We don't actually need to take all of them up to 11. We just need some of them to be as high as they can go, and then some of them we don't even need at all. And then one of them is we only need it to be part of the way upgraded. So essentially, some of the routing from this early part of the game is going to come from what segments of the run lose the least time to not having stats, as opposed to how quickly can we get them. So a lot of these, surprisingly, are actually racetracks, because I'm trying to find the best way to word this. The time loss from not having as high of a speed is actually not as bad as the time loss from not having your ability to spin as quickly. And that will be huge later for our freestyle tracks, and you'll see why once we get stats. So here, we're going to be getting a few quick flakes in Blue Station. This track does not... It's honestly pretty slow. There's not really much you can do to make this go faster as far as getting boost or navigating it really any quicker than this, so it's a pretty good one to knock out while we're still in no stats. I always accidentally split there. Now we're in Junction, which is the first super pipe map of the game. So there are 3 peaks. Each of them has a few standard types of maps. One of them's a super pipe, one will be big air, one will be slope style, and then 1 or 2 will be racetracks. And then you'll have some backcountry events as well. So we're just starting out getting some flake, or getting some big challenges knocked out while we get as many flakes as we can, and then we'll be heading into the event. Now, something worth noting about Junction, just keep an eye on it. Remember how it looks. We will be coming back here later for something pretty fun. That's pretty exciting. Exciting trick when we do. Now, I know what I said about freestyle not being the best with no stats. The reason we are doing this is because there are setups for these 3 big challenges that only work with no stats. We have not found a way to get a consistent setup with stats. And the time loss from this track is actually not that bad, because being that it's peak 1, the point requirement is fairly easy to achieve without too much time loss, so. Now we're just going to go into session 2 and then backtracking to get to the event. In some tracks, it is faster to get to the event load through session 2. In some tracks, it's faster to get to it via session 1, so it just depends on the track. Now, quick note here, so you notice we finished in 2nd. However, we are now in 3rd after Heat 2, so if you get enough points after your first freestyle heat, you will be able to skip Heat 2, and you will not have to do it. This is the standard for pretty much any freestyle track is you're going to want to get a high enough point requirement that you can skip the second heat. If you don't, then can be a significant time loss depending on which track you're on. Now we're just going to be getting a couple monster tricks here. I'll explain these in a second while we get the last flake. Alright, that should be good. Yeah, so I will cover monster tricks now. Monster tricks are specific combinations of flips, tricks, and Ubers that you can use to get a big point bonus and instantly refill your boost meter. It's a really good way it basically makes a lot of the point requirements and boosting in this game a lot easier. So you'll be seeing me do a lot of monster tricks throughout the run. So here we are in Metro City. This is our first race event of the run. And there's a couple of things to note here. The first one we're going to be doing is... Oops, missed that. The first thing you're going to notice is you're going to see me do a couple interesting things that may not seem necessary. These are going to be we're going to be doing some career highlights. Now, career highlights are one of the requirements of 100%. If we go back to the transport menu, that is one of the squares. There are 24 career highlights in the run, but they can really be boiled down to 8 broad categories. I will be covering them as I do them, and the first one is going to be riding a rail for I think it is 500 meters. And also, while we do that, we are going to be taking this chance to use another thing I'll explain in a little bit called a rail glitch to build up a 100 times combo as fast as possible. Then we get off the rail, register our 100 times combo, and that right there is 6 of the career highlights taken care of already. And again, as we do more, I will be covering them and mentioning when I do them. Now here, if I can land it, we're going to be coming across the first booth, and I missed it. But booths are a pretty unique part of Metro City at the racetrack. There are 3 booths in the track, and they are basically just shaped like telephone booths, except the second one, which is a water tower. Don't ask why. And these are essentially warp points. They are developer intended, and if you go in them, they warp you farther down the track. We're going to be mainly taking advantage of them on Heat 3. Heats 1 and 2, we're going to be picking up a couple of the flakes throughout the track. And here, you're going to be seeing me do the first restart glitch of the day. Now, keep an eye on the combo meter. So, I didn't get it that time, but this is a frame-perfect trick that you can do on any of the finish lines in the run. It is only beneficial to do on racetracks, because that's the only place that saves time. But if you if you restart a run on the first frame you pass a finish line, you will be able to skip the load zone and menus that come after it. This saves about 15 seconds, I would say 12 to 15 seconds per load skipped, depending on the track. Across the whole run, that can save, I believe it's up to 2 minutes, if executed perfectly. But again, each one of those is a frame-perfect glitch. So it is not easy to get. I would say on average, I wouldn't even say on average, I would say on a good day, if I hit 4, or if I hit half of them, I tend to call that a success. So here, I'm just getting a couple of the remaining flakes here. We are going to be getting a bunch in the big challenges, so we will not be getting all of them here. And we will also be using the big challenges as an opportunity to get any flakes that we missed in the race, like the one I missed earlier. So back to the restart glitch. The way we can tell if we are on the first frame of the race being completed is you look at the... Okay, I made it there, but I missed it again. That's okay. If you look at the combo meter, and you are in the air, normally the combo meter, like right now, the combo meter is present. Normally the combo meter will not register a combo when you're in the air. However, a combo will register as soon as you cross the finish line. So what we do is we'll jump into the finish line and pause buffer until we see that combo registered. And if we do, then that means we're on the right frame, and we restart. And we skip the heat. Yeah, I missed it again there, but you see right for a brief second the combo text changes to be the shadowy text or color. So now we've pretty much gotten all the flakes we want to get here. And we're just going to be spending this third heat pretty much just racing down the track as fast as possible. Now, because it is on the way, I am actually going to use this opportunity to grab this flake that we missed here, conveniently enough. Normally in this third heat, we begin that flake that's on the right. We can get that quite easily in one of the big challenges, so that will not be a problem. Now, that's the first booth right there. That warps us here. And then coming up here, we will be taking the second booth. Now, each of these first two booths actually has two spawns. The first booth there, I got the good spawn, and the second booth, I got the bad spawn. Now, as the name implies, there are just two different spawns. One is better than the other. For the first booth, the good spawn is about, I would say, a 80% chance or so. It's the far more likely option. For second booth, good spawn is the far rarer option, where you will be getting that maybe like 5% of the time, very infrequently. Alright, got third booth there. So that warps you pretty significantly far. That's a big time save if you're able to get it. And then here on the last heat of the race, we will not be using the restart glitch, as that is only good for saving time in the between heats. Alright, so now that's done. And now we are going to be getting some big challenges out of the way. So the first thing we're going to do, because they're boring and everyone hates them, is gates. So this is a series of big challenges across all the racetracks in the run, where they will make you pretty much run down the entire length of the racetrack, going through these gates you see here, which is normally fine, you know, it's a good way to get the player to explore the game. The reason they do not have a great reputation is because in most cases, they make you take the same path down the track 3 separate times. There's a couple big challenges in this run that stack on one another, so you'll see that... just gotta go back for this. Oh, this flake you're not meant to get during during this big challenge, but we're kind of tricky. Then we're gonna jump right back up here to get back on track. Anyway, so there are some big challenges that will stack on each other. So that green pillar that I ran into earlier, those are big challenge triggers, and that will activate your big challenge. So once we finish this big challenge, we will be going back to that same one, and instead of green, it will be blue. And that means it is the second level of that big challenge, if you will. For these gate big challenges, they are essentially the same thing, just with maybe now you have a time requirement. So basically, we're just going to be doing the same thing for about 9 minutes. And that's why this split in particular is longer than the others. If you happen to miss a gate at some point, that can be pretty catastrophic for your run. For Metro, that usually isn't a big deal because it's one of the first tracks and it's not all that hard. Some of the later ones can be quite difficult. Specifically the Peak 3 track Gravitude. That one is infamous among the competitive and casual scene for being by far the most difficult gates challenge in the game, along with being one of the hardest big challenges in the game in general. You will see why once we get to it. So we are coming up on the end of the first gates challenge here. I like to take this part nice and slow because it is very easy for your character to kind of get all screwy in that trench and not go where you want it to go. So now the second one, now you see we have a timer. This timer is a little different. Instead of just a straight timer that counts down, it adds 5 seconds every time you pass a gate. Functionally, for the purposes of the run, it doesn't really make a difference. It's just there to add another barrier that does not affect the speedrun in any meaningful way. It is, however, a unique of its kind big challenge in the game, as there's not another one like it. So this is a good example of something we don't want. I did miss where we're supposed to go for that gate, but we can back that up pretty easily. So now we don't have to restart that whole big challenge from the top. That's one of the things that is important to learn as part of the meta of this game, is finding backups for a lot of these kinds of things. There's a lot of stuff in this game, like for example, if you miss a flake, that can easily add 1 to 2 minutes on your run. If you have to go out of your way down the track just to get one flake. A lot of the routing in this game revolves around doing multiple things at once. You pretty much never want to be not multitasking in some way. For example, even on these gate challenges, I'm going to be getting a couple flakes that I haven't gotten in the race that would be out of the way for me to go to in the race. They are less out of the way on these big challenges. The first one is actually coming up here in a little bit. There are 2 on this jump we want to get. The first one is just... oh, I missed it. That glass panel there, that's what we're looking for. So I missed it the first 2 times, so we're going to have to take a quick session to get those. That should not be that bad. Those are pretty quick even without getting them during the big challenge. But, so the idea of the routing is you want to be doing multiple things at once. You want to be getting flakes while you're in a race or while you're doing big challenges. Unfortunately, we have not yet found a way to do big challenges during a race. If we did, that would be fantastic, but we currently do not have a way of doing that. So it's essentially you want to be getting snowflakes and career highlights while you're doing other things already. Which is why if you miss a snowflake and have to go out of your way for it, that can add time pretty quickly. There are exceptions where you want to get a flake on its own because it would actually be too far out of the way from any of the race routes or big challenges. And you'll be seeing when I do those. That tends to be in the back countries where the maps are a little more spread out and the snowflakes are a bit more, you know, out of the way. These gates, as you can see, they do take quite a while, and they are a little bit repetitive, so these actually would not be a bad time for to read some donations. You could easily get 1 or 2 in here, between the interesting subject matter. This is the last one though, so after this we will be moving on to better and brighter things. I guess I'll cover some of the more basic things of the run, or of the game system, before we get too much farther in. Essentially, the idea of this game, as far as going fast, is... Let's focus on this. Get past this class and get this flake, and then we'll just select warp back down to the main track. So... I guess I'll go over select warping, since that seems like a good time to do it. So, essentially, this game has a lot of little shortcuts and areas and nooks and crannies to explore, but they can't really guarantee you won't ever just get stuck somewhere. So the developers added this little function called a select warp, where if you press the select button on the PS2, on the GameCube it is the Y button. We call it a select warp just because. We're going to be getting another big challenge while we're down here. This one's pretty easy one, just double back flip, front flip. Quick, front flip there, back flip there, front flip, and we're done. We can take advantage of these select warps. By if we're, like, here for example. I won't do it, but you can select warp and you'll go back down to the main track, and that can be very useful for instances like this, where you just need to get a quick flake, and then you want to get back on the main track. Normally that loses all your boost. However, if you have Super Uber, which I will be covering next, you will not lose any boost. Because it's basically Super Uber, the idea is that you get unlimited. Didn't quite meet the point requirement there. There we go. Alright, so more basic things of the run. Tricks give you boost, boost gives you speed. That's the general idea. Once you fill up your trick meter, you are able to do what is called Uber tricks. Once you do 4 Uber tricks and fill in the letters U, B, E, R, you can... you can do what's called Tier 2 Uber tricks, and Tier 2 Uber tricks are the ones you see me doing that are the monster tricks. There we go. Much better jump that time. Alright, so we just got 1 flake left, and we have these 2 big challenges to go. That 1 flake is the one we skipped earlier on Heat 3 of the race, and it is luckily on the way to the route here. So yeah, once you get Super Uber, back to what I was saying earlier, once you get Super Uber, you just get unlimited boost for a minute. And that can be very useful for slow instances of the run, where you aren't able to build boost as easily. So here I'm doing what's called a rail glitch. So as you'll see, I have a style bonus down there, right below the combo meter. The longer you ride a rail, the more, the bigger your style bonus will be. So essentially you ride a rail for a while, you get off, and you get this whole big bonus. Now we have a glitch called rail glitching. So if you use the right stick, like that, you can do a board tilt. That's just a function in the game that basically lets you extend combos. If you flick the right stick back and forth very quickly, it will register tricks individually. And what that is good for is each time it does that, it will give you that a style bonus, meaning each of those individual tricks that you see me doing, and by trick I mean every time you see the combo meter go up, every time I flick the stick, which is very fast, it gives you like however much is on that point meter, and that can be 1,000, then it gets up to like 17,000. So you can build some points very, very quickly on that. It is very useful for for big challenges like that. There's another one on a racetrack that we'll be doing essentially the same glitch on later. So here we've moved on to Peak 2. There are a few ways you can get to a peak or the next peak. You need to unlock each peak in sequence. So we have unlocked Peak 2. There's a couple ways to do this. You can either finish the races on the peak, which we have not done. You can finish all the freestyle events on a peak, which we have also not done. You can reach the earnings limit, which is this right here. It's just a money goal. We have also not done that. The way we have done it for Peak 1 is, or unlocked Peak 2, is we have gotten the freestyle reward. Basically, we have done enough big challenges and gathered enough snowflakes that the game has deemed that we are enough of a good gamer to move on. Now for unlocking Peak 3, we're actually going to be doing the earnings goal, which is normally how you'd probably unlock it in casual play. I think even if you wanted to unlock it through the race goal or freestyle goal, just the rewards at the end of the tracks alone will actually get you to the earnings goal before the actual race events will. So this is the first of its kind big challenge that we're running into. I think there's actually only 2 of these in the game. This is airtime big challenge. Essentially, that timer up in the top is measuring how much airtime we have gathered, and we want to keep that as low as possible. If we go over, I think for this one it is 10 seconds of airtime, we fail the big challenge. So I'm going to be hugging the ground, except for here. We're going to be skipping this big long section with one big jump, burning through 3 to 4 seconds or so of our airtime. That's okay. We essentially have 10 seconds of airtime with which to work with. So we strategically spend them in certain parts that are faster than others. And then for most of these, you're able to ride down pretty quickly, taking the terrain while like around these curves here, so you don't minimize those little air pockets. Now here's another area we're going to be essentially sacrificing some airtime, be getting this flake while also getting this very fast rail, spending some airtime, and now we're back on track. I guess I'll talk about rails then. So in this game, there are a couple different types of terrain, basically. This right here is normal snow. There is also powder. There is ice you can run into. And all of these have different speed caps, essentially. Like, you can only go so fast on powder as you can, or you can go a little faster on normal snow, and then you can go even faster if you're riding on ice. The overall speed limit in this game is 75 miles an hour. There is no known way without using cheat codes or action replay to take that higher than 75. That's why if you see me falling, then usually my speed will reach 75 miles an hour, like here. So ice is one way to get to the maximum speed. That pretty much, there's no friction on ice, so it lets you go super fast. The other weird exception that kind of defies normal physics logic is rails. If you're riding on a rail and you boost, rails will let you go as fast as you want. So we frequently will be taking rails a lot with our boost to get lots of speed. So here we're entering Ruthless Ridge, rather. And this is going to be the first Peak 2 racetrack of the game. And here, so we're going to be spending the first heat getting all of our flakes. We can pretty much get all of the flakes we need to get in the race in one heat. So we're going to be doing that, knocking out all of the flakes at once, and then we're going to be doing something pretty fun. We're going to be doing heats 2 and 3 are going to be a wormhole, and I will explain that later when I get to it. But those are pretty fun. Those are the first, I would say, major glitch of the run. Get this flake, and then we're going to be select warping back to the main track. Another use of the select warp as a routing tool. Then we're going to be hopping up here on the right. That flake we passed, we will be getting that in the big challenges. No career highlights we're going to be getting now. Not that I think, anyway. Yeah, this heat's pretty simple. Just go down, get as many flakes as you can, and don't fall down. A lot of new players will ask, like, oh, how do I improve? How do I get better? Honestly, one of the simplest answers, and even I still don't do this from time to time. The simplest answer to go fast is don't fall down. I've already done it a couple times. It's very easy to do. This game makes you want to like do cool flips and tricks and stuff and show off. There's a lot of swag like that. I didn't need to do that. And that's actually a bit of a problem because now I have to get this flake. But we might be able to just sneak into this hole here. It's right at the end. Ah, just missed it. Yeah, I ain't getting that. Alright. Welcome back for that. We actually might not need to come back for that.
You know what I'm about.
So essentially, this is a little bit of a spoiler for later in the run, but later in the run we are going to be duping flakes. So the reason I showed that all mountain screen earlier is to show that the goal is not to get every flake in the run. The goal is to meet the requirement for 425 flakes, which is how many flakes are on the run. So we are actually able to get more flakes than what is available, or normally in the game. So we actually do have some room to skip some flakes. So if there are going to be times in the run where I just don't get a flake, that will be why. That flake was not an instance of that. So another fun thing about this game is you miss a flake, how can you route around it on the spot and minimize your time loss? That's a very dynamic thing that normally you don't have to think about in a speedrun. This game can be a lot more dynamic and less static in that way if you make mistakes. So here we have our first wormhole of the run. In pretty much every track, you have, if you try and go too far to the left or to the right, you will hit an out of bounds barrier. The game will say out of bounds, and it will automatically warp you back to the main track, similar to if you select warped. Now, this game is a little bit of a Swiss cheese game, as many games in this era are. So, God love them, the programmers didn't fully cover their bases with these out-of-bounds barriers. There's a couple ways we know how to get around them. This Ruthless Ridge wormhole is probably the easiest of all of them to do. You just ride off to the left, and there's just no out-of-bounds barrier there. Now what I'm doing here is I am switching my stance. You see in the bottom right corner that S is glowing, and then it isn't glowing. That's an indication that we have changed our stance from essentially facing right or regular to facing left or goofy, or switch, as it were. And for some reason, that is very fortunate for us, doing that resets the timer for the game warping us out, or like resetting us out of the wormhole. Why it does that? Don't know, but it is a fortunate coincidence. I've not been getting lucky with the restart glitch, unfortunately. It is a tricky one. I pause buffer as best we can, but pause buffering is not like it works in, say, Ocarina of Time. You do have to re-pause frame perfectly. If you hit unpause and then pause too quickly, it won't register your re-pause, as it were. So you do have to hit it on a frame perfect basis. So it can be, or not can be, it is quite a difficult trick. But it is, you do save a good amount of time if you're able to hit it. So yeah, we're gonna be spending these second two heats of Ruthless Ridge just doing this wormhole. Essentially, this is faster because rather than having to navigate through all this pesky snow that slows you down and all these barriers and obstacles that make the game fun and all that, this just lets you fall straight down. So you're basically skipping the whole thing. Oops. Oh, the wormhole there. Too busy explaining things, I guess. That's okay. Normally we'd be coming here in the big challenges, but we can come here early. That's fine. And this actually works out kind of well. Two mistakes canceling each other out, as it were. Now I have a second chance to get that flake that I missed earlier. There is an instance later of a snowflake that, or not a snowflake, a wormhole that requires you to use a different stance switching method than this one to stay in, and I'll cover that more when we get there. Alright, now unfortunately there's a flake up there that we missed a couple times, so we are going to have to go back for that separately. That's unfortunate. Although, it might be best just to skip it. Because we have that ability. There are flakes that are slow, but not as slow as that one, getting it on its own. So since we missed it, we can route around it. That is something we fortunately have the ability to do. And actually, there's a flake that we're skipping in this track that that isn't that slow to route around, so we will be able to get that instead, which is fortunate. So this is the second instance of gates in the run. Now this one is not nearly as egregious as the last one. For one, we have these flags instead of gates. Same idea, but slightly different. The main reason it's not as bad is because it's much shorter than the other ones. Taking a quick detour here to get that. This one only covers a portion of the track when Metro City, for example, that covers the entire track. So these are a lot faster and a bit less painful. This one's a bit tricky to keep your boost up on. One of the challenges, this one in particular. I'm going to be doing a quick little trick here. If you hit that flip the snow just right, you can make a quick sharp turn, get that flake. Normally you're supposed to take a whole separate path, make a whole other jump to get to that. But luckily we don't need to do that. So you might see me at some points flipping and spinning faster than you would normally be able to if you turned on SSX3 and you played without a stats character. And there is a reason for this. I am not cheating. So first of all, there's a technique we have called tapping, where if normally to do a flip or a spin, you will, if you're in there, you'll hold the D-pad, like that. So essentially the game wants you to land a trick, right? So if you let go of the D-pad, like you're about to land, the game will actually speed up your trick, because it wants you to land. So if you let go, it's like, oh, you're about to land, so let me just speed up the trick so you finish faster. Tries to help you out in that way. So you can actually take advantage of this. If instead of holding the D-pad, you tap it in the right rhythm, you're actually able to trick the game into spinning and flipping much faster than you normally would be able to. I've had people tell me that tapping on a no stats character, it can look like you're playing a stats character, but then wait until we get a stats character, then you'll see how fast we really flip. The second thing is that you can do is in the air, you can actually use the D-pad like that to control the angle of your board. And there's a couple times you'll see me use this throughout the run. It's used for a lot of nuance movement, like specific instances like, oh, I know I'll like land funky here, so I'll tilt my board up in this way, and that'll help me land that better. What you can also do is you can tilt the board in the direction that you're flipping, and that will actually help you land the trick better, because if you're doing a backflip, you can tilt the board back, and then the board is actually parallel with the ground sooner than it would normally be. So that actually, the hitbox on that does work, and it's not just like cosmetic. So you are able to land tricks earlier than you normally would be able to with that. So here we're going to be doing first collectibles of the run. Or this is actually the second collectibles of the run, I lied. So these are a couple throughout the run where you basically just take a quick line throughout the track, get these collectibles. Their hitboxes are a lot tinier than a snowflake is, so they can be a little tricky. This one, fortunately, is not that bad. Getting a few flakes along with this big challenge, as you can see. Now, this one here is the last collectible, but if we just take this jump a little bit farther, we have a little flake waiting for us. And now that we have full boost, we're going to be going back up here, real quick, getting our Uber back, getting a few quick Ubers in, and then we're going to be doing the points challenge. There's only one of these, luckily, but being that we did those 2 Ubers earlier, do one more here, and then we can do one more on this rail, build up our combo, for reasons I'll explain in a second, and do real quick, get an Executioner in. Executioner is the highest point value monster trick in the game. That's the one you want to do if you're looking to build points quickly. The Stone Age is another one you might see me do, and that one is the fastest Uber trick or monster trick to complete. So we got the challenge done, so now we're going to be going back here. This is not actually the route we would normally take. It is pretty similar. Basically what we'd be doing normally is instead of taking this ramp, we would actually be skipping that ramp, and we'd be taking this path here on the points challenge. But we don't need to do that because we get to reroute like that, which is fortunate. So now we are going to finish up there, go to Schizo. So that's one of the advantages of duping that might not be immediately apparent, is your ability to reroute on the fly and adjust for mistakes that you wouldn't normally be able to adjust to. So now we're in the Peak 2 Super Pipe event. I don't know what I'm doing there. Getting ready for a later ones. Now this is another example of, even though we generally avoid the freestyle events, this one with the this one's a unique example in that the flakes on this track are very high up on the track. So in order to get the flakes here, you need to do really high jumps anyway. And those jumps that it makes you take are high enough so that you can actually get first place in the event without needing to do any extra jumps. And doing extra jumps on a Super Pipe event is the main way to gain or lose time. So these are pretty quick, just doing a few hand plants. Hand plants will essentially like magnet snap you to a rail, so I'm actually holding the hand plant button earlier than necessary in order to basically immediately snap me to the rail that is between the pipes, and that just a little bit of a way to get some extra speed, get things done a little faster, save the frames and all that. So here is so for this first heat, we're going to be getting the flakes on this right side. These can be pretty tricky. Missed that one. Luckily, I was able to get the height I needed. Getting these optimally is quite hard, so normally you just have to settle for the next best thing, however you're able to do it. Time loss in this game tends to be pretty chunky. In some of the shorter categories, time loss is like, oh, I missed a spin boost, or some of these other really small... oh wow, I'm surprised that one missed it. Some other really small optimizations, but in 100%, the time losses and saves tend to be pretty chunky, like this. Alright, there we go. Finally got it. That flake there is one of the infamous flakes in this game that is known for causing a lot of people a lot of issues, speedrunners included. So I did take a lot more jumps than I would optimally do there, but even if I took the optimal number of jumps, I still would be able to meet the point requirement without any issue. Which is why we're doing this track without stats as opposed to with. It's a good way to get some money. Without losing too much time. As you might be able to tell, one of the reasons flakes on this track can be pretty difficult is you don't really see where you're going. You can see where you're going as far as down the track, but as far as where flakes are in relative to you, the player, as you're right on top of them, that can be pretty challenging. Unfortunately, these flakes, when performed optimally, are actually pretty fast to get, which is why we don't skip them. Because you don't skip flakes to make the run easier, you skip flakes to make the run faster. Which can be a little annoying at times. Alright, so now we have met the money requirement to unlock Peak 3, and that's where we'll be going now. So when you go to a peak for the first time, it automatically takes you to the back country of the peak. That is essentially the uncharted territory, if you will, at the top of the mountain. And because when you first go to a peak, it automatically takes you there, we just use that opportunity to get the big challenges done while we can. That's why I did the Peak 2 big challenges when I did as well. Now the Peak 2 backcountry, Ruthless, the big challenges there are really not that hard, so you're able to do them without stats, without too much problem. The trouble is Peak 3, Peak 3's backcountry, known as the Throne, that's where we are now. These big challenges are notorious for being some of the most difficult in the run. Specifically, this one I am doing now. This one is called New Line Collectibles. A lot of these collectibles here, specifically this one coming up, are notoriously hard to get. For case in point, I missed that one. That collectible in particular is very difficult because it's not actually on the ground, it's actually hovering midair, so you need to get exactly the right angle and exactly the right speed and jump height in order to get it. Remember earlier when we were on Ruthless Ridge, I was saying these have a very tiny hitbox. Snowflakes, you might have noticed, they kind of like magnet towards you, so if you just get in range of them, they'll kind of, make their way to you. You don't have to worry too much, so you can just get in their radius and you'll be fine. Now, just because it's the way I know how to do it, I take that hand plan even though not necessarily optimal for the backup, but it reduces mistakes. Let's see if we can get it this time. Got it. Nice. Alright, so that should be good. This big challenge also has a very weird property where if you wipe out... so, real quick, there are two kinds of wipeouts in this game. One where you just kind of fall down, you mash B, and then you get back up. And there's another kind of knockdown that happens when you are in the middle of an Uber trick, that your character will like fall out of the board and your character will fall out of the board and you'll pretty much get like warped. If you fall out of your board, and the worse fall, or wipeout, or the wipeout. Even though it doesn't say anything about it in the actual big challenge description, it will automatically fail you if you wipe out in that manner. Best run in theory is it was a requirement that they had in an earlier draft in the game and forgot to delete in the programming. But either way, don't wipe out badly there because it will reset you. And unfortunately, there are certain walls in the game that will basically ruin your chances. Or there are certain walls where if you touch them, it automatically does the severe wipeout. So you really don't want to hit those because in that big challenge, because it will immediately fail you and you'll have to restart. And especially if you've already gotten past the difficult part of the run, that can be a little frustrating. So here we're coming up on another trick big challenge, so I'm going to be trying to get as many Ubers done as possible beforehand. So now that we start, we have tier 2, and we can start doing monster tricks right away. So we'll get a quick Stone Age here. Good example of Executioner would not fit, so we can just get a quick monster trick, still get a good amount of points. So right there you might have noticed that right at the end of that second Stone Age, I did a quick 180. I'll do it again here. Yeah, right there. The reason for that is there is a feature in this game called trick sailing. So in order to encourage you to do different tricks and not just the same trick over and over, the game will try and get the game will reduce the point value of tricks you get if you do them multiple times. Now that is only true if you do one trick. If you do a second trick in the same jump, all your tricks you do in the jump will be registered as full points. So here we are finally getting stats. So once we leave this menu, we'll be super fast and super cool, and we're going to be flipping all over the place. It's going to be great. I'm actually using the D-pad and the analog stick at once here to basically menu twice as fast as you'd normally be able to. That's why if you've played this game before and you're like, what the hell is going on? Why is he moving so fast? That's why. You will also see me doing this on some of the menus, the transport menu in the game. You are able to use the D-pad and the analog stick together to navigate. So you can menu a lot faster than you normally be able to. So now, since we're here, and because we don't come here anywhere at any other time in the run, we're just going to be getting flakes here in Yellow Station. Now, as you can see, I am flipping a lot faster than I was before, and I'm also moving a lot faster. Alright, finished up there. So now we're going to be heading to the second track of Peak 2, Intimidator. We're going to be starting off with this big challenge here. The reason we're starting with this one and not an earlier one is because this one is a very good way to build up boost in preparation for the trick big challenge that is normally the first one you'd run into. There's a bunch of rails here. That lets us build up our boost really quickly. For some reason, if you land a trick on a rail as opposed to the ground, it will actually give you more boost out of it than if you just land on the ground. So if you do like a quick backflip or something and then you land on a rail, that will... Oops. That's okay. That will build up your boost a lot faster. Now what I'm doing here is I am getting to a 30 times combo. Hopefully we won't lose it. Okay. Because if you do a trick, your point value will, in some capacity, go into the combo meter. And so that number that you see next to the 42, that big number under the word combo, that's our current combo meter that we have built up. So the points that you get put into there is determined by the combo value that you have currently. So I think it's like if you're at 0 to 10, your half of the point value land will be put into the combo bank. But if you're at 30 or higher, and that's the maximum, double the point value you get. Will be put into the combo bank. So that's why whenever you're trying to build up points, you pretty much want to have at least a 30 times combo, because then essentially you're getting the most like return on investment, if you want to use financial terms, on your tricks. So rail glitching is a great way to do that. We'll be using that at a couple points later in the run to, oops.
That was a minor setback.
Doing a real quick awkward backtrack there in the, get that. So yes, rail glitching is a great way to build up your combo, so you can get the most out of your combo bank. And then that method I did earlier is another way. Basically, you hold down the right stick to start a board tilt like this, and then if you just keep jumping and doing 180s, that will that's a pretty quick way to build your combo meter as well. What I did there, quick out of bounds, skip a slow loop.
I got mad funky flavors. Yeah, this is my time.
Now these are the Intimidator gates. These are unique in that you only have to run down the track twice, but the first time you run down is basically split between the first and second big challenges, if you will. And this is also a rare instance of big challenges not being co-located with their other counterparts. I think this is the only instance of that in the game. So for example, we're gonna finish this, and now the third iteration of this big challenge is all the way at the bottom of the track. This is not where the other two were. So bit of a unique instance here. Doesn't really affect too much.
Oh, man,
Whoa, that was weird. We'll say this is a, that was a good example of some of the jank you might see in this game. If you do something the littlest bit weird or out of normality, this game's physics engine is exceedingly complicated, so it can very quickly spiral out of control and do something oftentimes hilarious for the viewer, oftentimes not so funny for the runner. Yeah, so for this last heat, this one takes us all the way down the full length. We're going to be getting a couple different flakes this time. This time, now that we have Uber a little bit later, we can do this little select warp. Save a little bit extra time. Only saves half a second or so, but hey, every little bit counts. Now we're going to be doing something a little bit interesting. We're slowing down here. Real quick backtracking. Going back up this other side so that we can swing up and grab this one. Go. And then, since this one doesn't actually have a time limit, We can actually go out of our way and not get that one, I suppose.
Come on, Superman.
That's okay, we can get that one later. In Intimidator, we are going to be skipping 3 flakes, so another instance of even if we don't get the ones we want, we actually can still just skip 3 flakes. Doesn't actually matter which ones, and still minimize time loss. I believe I missed a flake earlier, so we'll have to see what my counter looks like once we get into the race portion. See if I have to adjust my routing a little bit. Alright, so now we're getting into the metal. So this is another instance of the career highlight. One of the career highlights is holding, I believe it's an 8-second hand plant, and the way we measure that, the style bonus that I mentioned earlier, once that hits 14,000, that's our indication that we've done it. So I like to do it here.
Yo, you feeling lucky?
So you kind of just tap left and right on the analog stick to keep yourself in the hand plant. Now we've hit 14, and why don't we go into a wormhole while we're at it? So technically you can do that hand plant anywhere, but you already have to do a hand plant to get into this wormhole in particular. Hand plants have some really funky properties that allow you to skip barriers that you wouldn't otherwise be able to skip. So, in the interest of optimization, why not just do that? Yeah, so now that I'm thinking about it more, I have some time to process. I did miss that one flake up on the ledge, on that big jump earlier. So I'm actually going to be taking this warp a little bit earlier than I normally would. Normally I would be going to 18,500. Instead we're going to be going to 17,500. That will let us get an extra flake. And that point counter, that comes up by the nature of us switching stances and resetting the reset timer, that also serves to function as a measuring tool for how long you need to stay in the wormhole. So, for example, we'll say like, oh, this wormhole is a 26.5k wormhole. That was the Ruthless Ridge one we started off with. So now we have 21, which means we are missing 4 flakes. We only want to be missing 3. And I know where the last one we want to get is. Oh, perfect. So right there, we register the combo, restart, and now we're in the semifinal. So this, I could finally talk about it. This glitch has some weird properties, specifically, it prevents the cast from being updated. That flake right there, that was just past that rail, that's the one we're going to be getting. I don't get it immediately, so that if in case we mess up, then you can get it along with the backup. So anyway, back to the restart glitch. It has the property of not resetting the cast. Like if you go from the quarterfinal to the semifinal, it will change some of the riders around based on, you know, like who in theory would have made it past. But in if you restart, normally if you restart, it just keeps the riders the same. But it will, the game kind of gets confused where it thinks it'll update the riders, but it actually doesn't. Man, talking and doing these wormholes can be really challenging sometimes. Again, these would be a great time to read some donations, with how long they are. This one we're going to be going to 22.5, and that will take us right to the end of the track. So that property with the restart glitch not updating the rider is pretty innocuous, but does have some funny properties. For example, if we get this one, let me see if we do. Nice. Okay, we got them both. Perfect. So normally, so right here, you'll see Griff is mad at me. Now, normally he wouldn't have any reason to, but normally who would be sitting there in the final heat of a race like this would be Nate, who is Peak 2's peak boss. Every peak assigns a character to be the peak boss, basically the person you challenge in the rival events at the end of each peak. We have not gotten to those yet. We will be shortly, though. Normally, the peak boss is assigned next to you in the final heat of the race. Now, because we did the restart glitch, Griff is still there because that's who was there in the first heat, or rather on the prior heat. So when we finish this race, it will trigger a cutscene where normally, since we have done both Ruthless Ridge and Intimidator, it'll trigger a cutscene where Nate would come and talk to us and kind of throw down the gauntlet and challenge us to a one-on-one match in the backcountry, which is actually what we'll be doing next. Now, because Griff is assigned to the spot that Nate would normally be positioned, we're actually going to have Griff be the one to throw down the gauntlet and talk smack to us, even though he's not going to be the one we're racing against later on. So that's a fun little quirk. So Griff is actually the peak boss in Peak 1, at least if you're playing Mac. Normally Mac is the Peak 1 peak boss, but it gets replaced with Griff because it can't also be Mac if you're playing as him. No, I skipped the cutscene because, you know, gotta go fast. But, yeah, normally, so Griff would appear there, which is kind of funny. Alright, so this is Ruthless. This is the track we were on earlier, getting big challenges done. Except this time we're going to be taking a wormhole, because it's nice and fast, and we don't want to do any of that pesky work. This one's another instance. There's basically two kinds of entering a wormhole, or two ways of entering a wormhole. The first one is just riding out of bounds, where there is not a reset barrier, and the second one is using a hand plant to get through a barrier, like normally, like specifically the ground. There's also a third way of wipeouts have a weird property where sometimes if you hit the right frame of a wipeout, that will allow you to like fall through the ground weirdly, but that's not anything controllable. It's pretty random. Oh, looks like we haven't missed it yet. Gotta get through here. Now we unfortunately wiped out on this tree here, but looks like we saved it. Nice. All right. So this Ruthless is a bit of a weird instance where the optimal way down the track is actually using two consecutive wormholes rather than one wormhole falling all the way through. You know, the spawn you get out of each wormhole is dependent on, you know, where relative to the track you are. Like, you don't, while it looks like we're just in the middle of space, we are actually relative to the track somewhere. So it is trying to warp us to the nearest point of the track. So, just for whatever quirk of the geometry, for some reason in Ruthless it's faster to do those two. Oops. Gonna be getting a few quick flakes at the bottom of the track here.
Working well.
I'd like to get these two at once because it looks cool. And then quick select warp to finish it off. So this is the peak race, or the Ruthless race, first rival event, and then it's followed up by a peak race. And so peak races are a unique kind of event. So all the tracks in SSX3 they don't exist in isolation like they do in, say, like SSX Tricky. Each track there is like completely isolated. Think like Mario Kart, you know, that like Mario Circuit and Rainbow Road don't ever touch each other. They're just completely separate. In SSX3, that's not the case. The entire mountain is interconnected, and while you normally will use a transport menu to go between one track to another, you can just keep riding through a track into the station and then on to the next track. Peak events are, in this case, peak races, are a fun instance where they will basically make you race down a large part or through multiple tracks at once. So for Peak 2, the Peak 2 race will take us from Ruthless, and it will make us ride through Intimidator, through Snow Jam, which we have not done yet, and then ending in Metro City at the bottom. Now that's a lot of tracks to do, and we don't have that kind of time. So what we're going to do is we're going to be doing something called an early exit. So in these peak races and peak jams, it assigns unique reset barriers that wouldn't be in the game otherwise, that basically block off your path from going to other tracks. And you'll see what I mean later. And so what we can do is we can basically, in a similar way to how we get around a Wormhole, get around those reset barriers, we're going to be getting around these reset barriers with a different goal. Instead of going off limits, we're going to be entering a different track. And basically what this does for us is, so for this instance, we're going to be going into a track called Style Mile, which is a slope style. We have not gone to a slope style yet. But a slope style, along with all the freestyle events in the run, they have a finish line at the end, and there are no tracks after freestyle events. So what this means is that in a peak event, normally you'd have to ride all the way down to Metro City, but what we can do is we can do this right here. We got past the reset barrier, and now we're on our way to Style Mile. And Style Mile will have a finish line at the end, and it will have a functioning, like, the finish line isn't just aesthetic, it is essentially like a load zone or a trigger zone, and it is functioning just as much as any other. So it basically lets us finish the event way earlier than we would normally be able to. So we're going to take another quick wormhole in Style Mile and fall pretty much the whole way down. In this track, the wormhole goes until 12k. And then we'll be using a couple, or just taking a quick detour on the way down, get a couple flakes. Since we are in a race event, technically, we don't actually have to worry about getting points, so we can take a way that's normally not very conducive to building points. So, and that doesn't, we don't need to worry about it. So real quick, get in this flake, then we're gonna hop off here real quick. Looked up, that's okay. Come up here. Now this flake, after this one, on the left you'll see that one right there. We are actually going to be skipping that one, because that's an instance of a flake that's normally too slow to get in Hundo. So while we can get that if we weren't duping, we don't need to, because it's slow. We don't like that. Even though it's right there, it actually is pretty slow to have to go back for it. So we finished Peak 2 race in 4 minutes. As you can see from my records, normally a Peak 2 race will take a lot longer than that, in the vein of like 11 or 12. So pretty much in every instance of Peak race, and in one instance of or 2 instances of a Peak jam, we will be using early exits to get around the intended path. I think the only instance of a time we will not be doing that is in Peak 2 Jam, which is the freestyle version of what we just did. In Peak 2 Jam, it will just take us to Style Mile anyway. So there's no faster alternative. Or there's no, like, faster track out of Red Station, which is where we were before. So we just come here. And a few quick flakes. Now there is these tracks are unique for something called multipliers. That's these X's you see around. All the slope-style tracks in the game have these. They are multipliers that basically just whatever you have on your score, it'll multiply it by whatever the multiplier is. The best one is a 10 times multiplier. Each slope-style track has 3 of those. Here's one right here. I'll be using this to just get some quick points. So if you do a monster trick or 2, along with the 10 times, that's an easy way to pretty much get any point requirement in the game. The most difficult track for points in the game, I would say, is probably Kicked Out. That's the Peak 3 slope style. You can meet the entire point requirement in one jump with a 10 times at the end, and that's actually what we'll be doing. That's a pretty cool thing to watch. Our score will go from like around 100,000 to like 900,000 or a million right in one jump. So that's a pretty cool thing to watch. That flake will be getting later in the big challenges.
This is my game.
Quick grab this flick. There we go. I'm gonna come all the way down here. Got these. Now, quick note on duping. Oops, missed that one. Quick note on duping while I have it in my brain. So, something interesting about duping is that you can get over 425 flakes. You can get like 426 out of 425. Ironically, this actually makes the overall point or overall completion percentage of your file go down. So if you get more than the normal allowable amount of flakes, which is 425, if you get more flakes than that, you will actually soft lock yourself from ever getting 100%. So that is an interesting consideration when doing this run, is you have to keep a very close eye on your flake counter or be very cognizant of which ones you've missed and which ones you still need to get, because if you get an extra flake, then you not only are losing time, you can't finish the run at all. So that's something interesting that you need to know while running this game. So now we finished the medal event for this track, so now we're just going to be doing the points, or not the points, the big challenges real quick. Gotta hit these moving targets, which can be a little annoying.
To the drawing board.
That is a great example of the inherent randomness that this game can have sometimes. Hitting that rock. Interesting quirk about this game. doesn't actually really affect much as far as the gameplay goes. But in this game, everything is either programmed as the ground or as an object. So the reason that's interesting is there is multiple times where you'll see like a tunnel, for instance. And we pass through the tunnel, and you'll say, oh, well, there's walls on the side, and there's a ceiling there. You know, those aren't objects. And they're also not the ground, either. There actually are programmed in as ground. You know, this game lets you do all kinds of crazy things that break the laws of physics. It lets you, like, ride on walls and, like, go upside down, and all this really cool shit. Probably shouldn't be cursing. It lets you do all this kind of really cool stuff. And the reason it lets you do that is because they are counted as, they're counted as the ground. And so the game kind of tries to predict, like, what path you're on, and it will, like, if you're ever noticing that you'll be flying through midair and your character, like, automatically change angle, that's because the game is predicting you're going to land on, like, an uneven surface, for example. Again, it doesn't really affect the run much, but it's an interesting quirk of how it's programmed. So just got 3 quick big challenges here, and then we're going to be all set. Now, we don't actually have to take that whole loop. We can actually just jump to the end of it. The game doesn't really check much if we actually finish all the rails. It is very particular with what it wants. This one wants a 360, and then it just wants us to reach the end. Now I am down a flake from what I would normally need, so I should think of what the fastest way to get that would be. Got an idea that will work. Now this is not ideal, of course. Oh, looks like I already got it. Did I miss 2? Alright, I'm gonna have to come back to this. I don't want to waste too much time. I'm not gonna spend too much time messing with try and look at my flake count. We will find it at the end of the run. So now we're on launch time. This is the big air event for Peak 2. Got a few big challenges out of the way here. Messed that one up, I don't know why. This one is just, I think it's a 180-degree spin. Essentially, it's 5 full rotations. So here is a bit of an optimization. Rather than doing this and then sessioning again, we're actually going to be going backwards, because this one's pretty easy. Just a 360 tail grab. And then we're back at the trigger spawn. So a little bit of optimization, reduce the menuing. Okay, missed that flake. We can try for it on the next one. Most of these are just do a specific combination of flips. None of them are all that bad. We're going to be trying to spend some time to get this one though.
Showing the top good. What day is it?
Alright. Now we got the Just have to do a triple backflip and then we're done. Alright.
Big challenge completed.
Now, earlier I mentioned keep an eye on junction. Keep an eye on launch time as well. This is another one we're going to be doing some fun stuff with in a bit. Alright, so as you can see, we can knock through these ones pretty quickly. With the power of monster tricks, you just gotta get a couple quick one jump, get a few snow nages in, and you're pretty much good to go. Peak 3 is pretty much the first time where monster tricks don't totally break the game. So now we've done all of the freestyle events on Peak 2, we'll be moving on to Ruthless Jam. So this is the only event in Ruthless where we're not actually going to be taking the wormhole. We're going to be getting all of the rest of the flakes we need here in this one event. You might be seeing me do some funky movement to get onto different paths that I normally wouldn't be able to get to. Like here, I'm making a real sharp turn to the left. That gets us on this path. So let's just get this flake. Or not. Hit a wall in the wrong way, and that'll cause a spin boost, and that can kind of fling you out of control. That's okay, though. We have ways of getting around that. Hand plant here to get this one. And then we're going to be taking a really sharp turn here. And we're going to be going all the way back up over here to get this flake. Because we really don't want to do multiple runs down this thing, because the wormhole is so fast. We want to do only one. And that's it. One is plenty. I guess something I haven't talked about yet is a spin boost. This is a trick that you've probably seen me using throughout the run now. Where if you spin and right before you hit the ground, your character will kind of like do this little spin out animation that you see there. If you press the analog stick in the right way as that happens, you can actually essentially, I like to think about it as like slingshotting your character forward, because it lets you build up speed a lot faster than you normally be able to. There's a few different kinds of spin boosts, basically based on how long your character is spinning for on the ground. The ones you pretty much need to know about are a 360 spin boost, which is this. That's where you end up on the same, your character is facing the same way. That's another one. That's another one. With these, your character will face the same way at the end. The other one that will be relevant a little bit later is a 540 spin boost. That lets you build up speed a lot more speed at once, I'll say. Nate is just beating us because we took a bit of a detour for Flakes, but that's okay, because we got more points than him.
Yeah, now
So therefore it
who's
doesn't
the
matter.
man?
Yeah, we won, that's right. Alright, so now we are going to Peak 2 Jam. And we're taking another wormhole. I bounced on that rock weirdly, which kind of caused my switch counter to get all funky, but that's okay. We still made it in. Once you're in this state, it's pretty easy to stay in. You just gotta tap the D-pad left or right whenever you see the switch button change. So this is going to be the last event we have on Peak 2, and then we're going to be moving on to Peak 3. I like to do Peak 1 last, mainly just because it tends to be easier. So get all the harder stuff out early on. The reason we did Peak 2 first is because we get stats in Peak 2, so it's, in terms of menuing optimization, it's like the smallest fraction of a second faster to do Peak 2 first. But ultimately, the order of tracks you do really doesn't matter as far as the run goes. It can save like a modicum of time when menuing, which is why we do them in the order we do them. But largely it is not too important. The only ones that are important are, for example, our early exits. We like to reduce load times whenever we can, because loads are bad, because they're slow. So if you load a track that you are already on, the game won't actually make you sit through the long loading screen. It'll just plonk you back at the top of the track. The good thing for us is that, now I'm going to take a quick break, try and get this trick here. Normally we wouldn't need to do this, but this is a backup. Alright, we got it, actually. That's not a backup I'm very familiar with. So that flake we normally don't get, but because I missed a flake earlier in Ruthless, that is the one I'm getting to replace it. So the only track order that really matters is anything you can do to reduce load times. So if you load a track that you are already in, the game won't actually put you through the loading screen. So, for example, we came to Style Mile in Peak 2 race, ended in Style Mile, got the Peak 2 race event completed, and then we're already in Style Mile, so we load up Style Mile, no load screen, and then just get right into it. And we do that pretty much whenever we do a Peak race early exit. Optimization of load times. Doesn't save too much time. I think each load is around like 15 seconds or so, but it does save some.
Okay, one step at a time. Oh man, not now.
Real quick, get that 10 times to meet the point requirement. Almost didn't have the boost to do it, but we got there. It's also at the 3 times here that you can use to get a good amount of points. Alright. So this is the first track where things get spicy. And I mean really spicy. This is going to be Gravitude. So to start, things are going to be spicy because this is the fabled grav gates that I mentioned earlier. Hopefully I make them look easy, but there is a good chance that I will fail it once or twice. Like I said earlier, if you fail these even once, it can be however much time you put into the challenge. When you failed it, that's how much you lose. Now, these, Peak 3 in general tends to be a lot harder because of the, that's a good example. I messed that up, so now all that time I spent doing that challenge is down the drain.
Tiny little package that was.
So Peak 3 tends to be challenging because by the nature of the geometry of the track and the type of terrain they use, it's a lot harder to control your character. You basically just have less, like, agency, if you will. So you might see me taking things slow. That's because I really want to make sure I have full control over what's going on. And that is one of the things that makes this so challenging. Missed that flake there, but that's okay. We have 2 more times to get it. There's in that little section back there's a cluster of flakes. You can't get them all in one run, so we use the different heats here to get them. Now here's another flake we're going to be getting. This first big challenge does not have a time requirement, so a lot of these like extraneous flakes we're going to be going out of our way to get. Because we don't have to worry about wasting too much time. The later versions of grav gates can be very strict with their time requirement. If you go out of your way even a little bit, that can spell disaster for meeting the required time. I have had times in runs where I have finished a big challenge, or I finished grav gates with less than 1 second remaining. That gets especially bad where, let's say you miss a flake, like even one of these, or one of the earlier ones I guess would be more applicable. If you miss one of those, you might have to go out of your way to get it in a later grav gates, but the later you do them, the harder they get. So that can be pretty tricky. And this is another instance like Metro City where each individual gate challenge takes you throughout the whole track. A really sharp turn there they make you take. Alright, and last one, and done. Alright. Back up to the top and do it again. This track only has 4 big challenges, luckily. Minimize the pain. There's going to be 3 of these gate challenges and then 1 points requirement challenge. And that one, we can get that done pretty quickly with the use of monster tricks. However, the route we use to get them done optimally can be pretty strict, so it's a pretty challenging route to use, but we'll see how we do. Luckily, we have this big long jump here on the left that we can use as a backup. That is not too bad. There aren't too many instances of this run of if something goes wrong, you are barred from completing the game. The only instance like that I can really think of would be if you soft lock by getting too many flakes. And as long as you keep an eye on your flake counter, then that should be pretty easy to avoid. Now, in a marathon setting, it might be a little bit more difficult to track my flakes while I'm talking throughout the whole thing. So we'll see how this goes. But normally I wouldn't do this, but I think what I'll do is right before the last event of the game, or last like flake significant event of the game, I'll take a look at my menu or my mountain progress tracker. That will tell me how many flakes I have, and that'll tell me how many I need to get. So as long as you pay attention, it should be fine. Normally when I do runs, it doesn't matter personally if I... For example, this run, I'm behind, so this is not on PB pace, so I won't bother checking if I'm up or down a flake or two. I'll check at once the run is done, and then if I need to get a flake, I will. And if I'm up a flake and I soft log, then oh well, you know. But for the purposes of a marathon, that is something we'll be checking later. Now, I'm going to be ending this one with Super Uber. That means that when I go to the session, I'll have full boost. And because of that, I'm now going to be trying the Trick Spig challenge. I'm going to be getting 3 Ubers there, so I can get a 4th one here. So that way, I can kick off this jump here with an Executioner. Real quick one here, building up combo as quick as we can. Alright, messed up the second one, that's okay. Ah, bummer. Alright, so we lost our combo. Like I said, we have backup. Not as fast, but this was the old method. Good rail to... Fuse on. And real big jump here. Alright, there we go. So now we just have this last grav gauge challenge, and we are on to the event. Missed that one. That was another example of we missed a flake there, but we have backups we can get instead. And we will begin that on the heat of the race, because there are flakes that we just kind of zip on by, and we can go out of our way for 1 or 2 if we need. There are some options for flakes I could have gotten here to back that up instead. But again, with the 3rd heat of grav gates being such a tight timeline, you don't really want to mess with it too much. You can kind of screw around a little bit, but you really want to get right back on track, because it's a 3-minute time limit, and if you don't miss, or if you miss that, that's 3 minutes down the drain. Which is not too nice. Like I said, the time loss in this run tends to be pretty chunky. It's not until you get at a pretty high or like pretty fast PV level that it starts to get more nuanced. And even at even where the world record is, there's still like huge swaths of time that we just don't have. So now here's where we're going to be doing something interesting.
Big challenge completed.
So we're going to be doing some weird stuff here. I will explain this in a minute. Basically just going to be trying to backtrack to the load zone of the track for reasons I will explain shortly. This one is pretty difficult because of this huge hill that they really try to make it hard for you to backtrack here, but we're speedrunners, nothing can stop us. A little bit of speed there. There we go. That up here. That quick freeze. That means we have hit the load zone. So we're going to make our way back down over here. Without sessioning, which is an important note. We're going to make our way to the event space. So what that did is that we hit the load zone. And what that means is that the load zone is no longer there. So normally if you hit a load zone by backtracking like this in an event, it will freeze the game. But since we hit it, now that won't happen. And we're going to do another quick backtrack in the same way we did before. Very good jump there. So now, this time during the event, we're going to be going way farther. So now what we're doing is we have now hit the transition trigger. So this is a bit hard to explain. This is all part of a glitch called quantum tunneling. So basically what we have done is the simplest way to explain it is we're just messing with load zones in a way that's getting the game really confused. And that's going to let us trick the game into thinking we're somewhere else when we're not. Basically, we're going to make the game say, okay, you're about to do gravitude. And we're going to say, yep, the next track we go into is gravitude. And that's what the transition trigger essentially means. Is like, hey, all right, the next load zone I hit, that's gravitude. And then what we did is we restarted. And by restarting, we bypassed the load zone, because the load zone is between the transition trigger and the start of the race. When we restart, it automatically takes us to the start of the race, bypassing the load zone. The reason that's important is because then, we haven't hit the load zone yet. So the next thing we hit should be gravitude. And then we're going to be doing a whole lot of funky stuff to make the game think that we're in gravitude when we're not. And you'll see what I mean very shortly. Right here. So real quick. Here. Okay, missed that one. That's okay. Missed that second backup. That's okay, we've got another. Essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using a wormhole to go past the finish line of gravitude. And we're going to be going into another track altogether. So we're right at the end of the track here, but we're not actually going to be hitting the finish line. Hopefully. That's the goal anyway. So here we're going to be going to 9,000. Now we have passed the finish line. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back up to the transition trigger and restart. So now we are in the void. So where we are in reality is Black Station. Or no, we're in Red Station, sorry. However, the game still thinks we're in Gravitude, and we still haven't hit a load zone yet. So, what's happening is we are navigating through an unloaded station. Sorry, I'm trying to focus on getting my inputs right here. Yes, Yellow Station. We are moving through an unloaded Yellow Station to hit the load zone of launch time. So now, as you can see there, the game still thinks we're in a Gravitude race, but we are in reality in launch time. Kind of messing up the race pretty badly here, that's okay. These guys don't know about my shortcuts. Restart glitch still applies here because it gives us the long load times because it's a race event. And then now what we can do is we can just do 3 heats of the race in launch time, and the game will think it's in Gravitude, and then it will award us a medal as such. And believe it or not, if done optimally, which in all honesty I did not do terribly fast, the game will actually think that we are in... the game will give us credit for doing all this big long setup and that big long wormhole and the 2 backtracks is actually still faster than doing Gravitude 3 times. There are 2 instances of this trick in the game. The next one we'll be using is in Snow Jam. So yeah, this is a quantum tunnel. Name makes sense based on the nature of what we're doing. We're basically quantum tunneling through the world into another track. Yeah, so let's go to Kicked Out now. I'll probably do Throne next for a reason I'll make apparent. So this is normally not what Kicked Out looks like. You can see the background we have is normally what would be the background to launch time. However, as a byproduct of the glitch, the next track you go to will have the skybox for the track you were just on, that you quantum tunneled to. If you notice before, launch time had the skybox for Gravitude, which was not the skybox we had on before. So, interesting property of the glitch. Basically just a byproduct, but a fun byproduct at that. Now, normally I'd like to do this in Throne Race. We could do Throne Race next. Again, normally it doesn't really matter. Personally, I just like the visuals of Throne with this background on it. Now you might be saying, wow, you're really, like, knocking or falling down a lot. It actually does not matter too much. Because on this track... This is the one I was talking about earlier, where pretty much the entire points we need to get come from a 10 times at the end. You also might notice my flake counter is not there. That is another byproduct of the quantum tunnel. Just a residual effect though, nothing that will last past this track. So 10 times, get quick 800,000 points, and we're moving on. So another interesting property of a quantum tunnel, normally the game wouldn't let you transport after doing a trick like that because it gets really confused as where it is. Actually, if after the quantum tunnel you select gravitude as your transport option, it will take you to launch time because that's where it thinks gravitude is. So the game actually will crash if you transport to most tracks in the game. The exceptions being any track that shares a skybox with your original track. In this case, that is... Just get this flick real quick. In this case, that's gravitude. So, because kicked out shares a skybox with gravitude, it lets us transport there. Same thing is true with thrown as well. Thrown would have no issues transporting. Alright, so now we're just going to do a quick jump here. Now, we actually didn't get the points requirement, and we need gold here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend some time building up combo. We have plenty of time. This is a good backup we can use. We're pretty much just going to spend our time building up some points. To make sure we get this point requirement without having to redo the track. Now, you might think this is slow, and it definitely is slow, but it is a lot faster than doing the track again. Which is why we do it as a backup. As long as you get your 2 executioners there, that shouldn't happen, but I only got my 1. So, alright, that should be enough. There we go. Alright, now on to some big challenges. Missed that one, that's okay. We can get that at a later version of this event. So this is just making us grind on a rail for a certain amount of time. And we're just gonna use this opportunity to get some of the flakes in this early part of the track. Kicked Out has rails absolutely covering it, as you can see, so these aren't too bad. You have plenty of options for rails to take. This one we're actually going to be going off to the left instead, because there's a few flakes this way that we'd like to get. Oops. I guess I warped too early there. Normally we're supposed to come back here, but that's okay. Just need enough boost to come over here. Make this big jump over here. Just barely got it. Go over here, grab this one. And now we're done with that. Last one is 600 meters, the farthest of them all. So we're just going to be straight getting rails the whole way. This one can be a little tricky if you miss your rails. Which is why we don't get the the flakes on this version of the challenge. Take this rail, then hop off here. That left path we'll be going to later. For now, I'll take this. And there's this big long rail path in this cave here. That will be taken instead. Alright, nice. Next up we have a point challenge. And with the handy aid of a 10 times multiplier early on the track, we're going to be knocking this out pretty quickly. We're going to be slowing down here because there's a snowmobile that will knock you out and will ruin your day. Gotta make room for a snowmobile guy. It's just proper courtesy. And finish it off, just a quick race to the bottom. They tend to like having the opposite of whatever the track type is as a big challenge. So they like having points, big challenges on race tracks, and race challenges on point tracks. This is what we're gonna use this opportunity to grab the last few flakes of the track. Now because we're actually taking, this isn't the fastest way to go down the track, this actually does make the time requirement a little bit tight, but come on, we're speedrunners, we can do it. That's why we go fast. We go so fast that even when we're slow, we're fast. Now, I am not, quick admin note, I am not reading my stream chat for the purposes of this recording, but they do have some helpful tips, it seems, so feel free to read. Don't know if I mentioned this yet, the flake counter is actually gone as a byproduct of the quantum turtle, or the quantum tunnel. Not quantum turtle. Alright, so now we're going to go into Throne Race.
Big challenge completed.
This one is a pretty easy wormhole that just takes us from the pretty much the top of the track all the way to the bottom. So this one's a pretty easy one. Knocking Simon's lights out there.
Uber zone 1.
Oh yeah, boy!
Come here. Now, you are technically able to ride this rail straight up without doing this little hand plant here. However, that is an unreliable strat. Sometimes it'll just fling you off the rail for no apparent reason. So that hand plant makes that more consistent. So it does waste a second or two to do the actual hand plant, but in the grand scheme of things, it is worth it to have the consistency. So we're going to be doing another wormhole here. This is another instance of, so in each backcountry, you're going to essentially go down it about 5 times, really 4.5. You'll go down it once for the peak, for the event race, the rival race. That's what we're doing now. And then you'll be going down a second time for the peak race, once for the track jam, and then once for the peak jam. So that's 4 events that you have in the backcountry, and then you have the big challenges and free ride as well. So in each case of Throne, like we had with Ruthless, we are going to be taking the Wormhole 3 out of those 4 times, so we can minimize the amount of time we're spending getting flakes. We only need 1 good run down Throne, and we can get all the flakes we need. So, taking the Wormhole as many times as we can, of course, since it's fast. And this one is a especially fast one. It only goes until 11.5k, which is a lot shorter than some of the other wormholes we've been doing. Now this is another instance where we're going to be doing an early exit. Except we're actually going to be doing something a little weird. We're going to be doing almost 2 early exits in one. Essentially, the first early exit will take us to the big air track Much Too Much. And that is a much faster way to do all peak race, which is what we're doing now. But it's faster to go to the super pipe event, Perpendicular. So we're actually going to be doing a early exit to get into the path to Much Too Much, and then a quick early exit after that to get into the path to Perpendiculous. Now, it's all going to look like one big thing, so you won't even notice, but just a quick note there. I don't want to warp because I don't want to lose my boost, so we're actually not going to be coming to Black Station in Freeride, so I'm going to go out of my way to try and get legs here, if I could get the camera to fix itself. Oh. There we go. I'm going to take a quick kind of behind-the-scenes jump here with this flake. We're not actually supposed to be here right now. Alright, first early exit, done. Second one. Oh, missed that one. Okay. Try that again. Select warp up there, and then we can just make our way back. This is bit of a time loss, but nothing you can't recover from. Get some quick boost here. Alright. Load zone again, or hit the reset zone again. If you missed that, you can just... okay. There we go. Alright, now we are on our way to Perpendiculous. Yeah, just based on the nature of that being essentially 2 in 1, it makes that early exit a lot finickier than some of the other ones. Alright, and now we just gotta ride down to the end here. We're gonna use this opportunity to get a few of these flakes, so we can have the time. That one at the end is easy enough to get during the event. And now we're done. So now we're going to be doing something a little interesting. There are these flakes that you can just barely see in the corner there. Messing up my setup already. So we have to do a very, very, very precise turn to catch a bit of snow and ride these rails up like this, the opposite way we're supposed to.
Brains, brains, brains!
Go. 540 Indy. Nice. Alright, so now we did that on the left side, now we just gotta do it on the right side. Nice, first try, alright. Now we should be able to get them all in one jump here. Alright, nice. I love it when that works.
Big challenge completed.
And now this one we don't have to do anything fancy. Ironically, the third one's the easiest. And done. Take that rail backwards, and we're in the event. So this is another example of we're going to be using rail glitch to build up combo really fast. Get up there. There's rail glitch. Get our combo up to 30 or about 30. And now we'll be able to get a lot more points out of our combo, which will make hitting the points requirement a lot easier. So rather than having to get to 500, we'll only really need to get to like around 200. So after 2 jumps, this should be good. Yep, we are already at the top. Actually, we really need closer to 600, so I'm gonna get a quick Stone Age just to be safe here. If I could get one. Alright, that should be good. When you hear Mac Fraser is in 3rd place, that's a sign that we have done it. That we have successfully skipped the heat. So that first one, the reason we have to go a bit higher is because we're not actually looking to get into 1st place. We're looking to get into the top 3 after the first 2 heats. So that's why I was going a little bit higher than the actual 1st place there. But for this one, it's the final, so we just have to get that 500 point requirement. See if that'll do it. Oh, not quite. This is another example. Trying to optimize it a little bit too much could ruin your chances. Or could cause unnecessary time loss. Sometimes it's better to just take it slow, get the extra jump, not risk it. Alright, so now we're going to be doing the last freestyle track of Peak 3, Much Too Much. And this one's an example of, there's a big challenge here, I'll point it out when we get to it, that is notorious for being very difficult for one of the only RNG elements in the run. The first example of RNG in the run is Metro, the booths. Now it doesn't actually matter that much because the time loss there is under 15 seconds, I would say. With this one, the big challenge we're gonna do in a bit, I'll point it out when we get to it. It can cause you to fail the whole challenge, which can lose over a minute each time. Luckily, we have a semi-consistent method of dealing with the randomness. So as long as we stay within our boundaries, then it usually ends up fine. I meant to go up there, but that's okay. Alright. And now here we are. Essentially, this is a gates challenge on a big air, which is a bit unusual. But the weird part is that, as you can see, the gates are rotating for some weird reason. This is the only instance of gates like this in the run. So if you wait for that rock to come by, that actually, for some reason, lines you up very well with these next two, which is very fortunate. There we go. Don't actually have to go through it, just have to hit that middle bit. Now this one is an interesting one. This is a airtime, opposite of what we did in the backcountry before, where we had to minimize airtime. This one we have to get as much of it as possible. So rather than doing all those silly jumps, we're going to do what's called a slide. So if you position your board at a very specific angle relative to the ground, you will enter this state called a slide, where it will treat you like you're falling, but you won't. It's basically, yeah, it treats you like you're falling, but you're not. You're on the ground. Now that is useful there because you get to get airtime without needing to navigate back and forth to the event start. But that's also used throughout the run in like places, in other places, specifically in ILs and other shorter categories, where it's used to. It's faster than riding normally when you're on a slope because it treats like you have no friction, which is very advantageous. So I'm doing another 2 sets of career highlights here. So what I just did is, you might be thinking, wow, that was really slow. You were just like hovering in the air for a while. One of the big challenge, or not big challenge, one of the career highlights is getting 9 seconds of airtime. So that's what we did there. The other one is you need to do 10 Uber tricks in a run. That's these ones that I'm doing now. There's also a career highlight for doing rail Ubers, but that one's not that bad to get in the background, so we don't really worry about it too much. Alright, and that's that. And off to Throne Jam. So here we're just going to be getting a whole lot of flakes, while getting a whole lot of points, as is the game. So I guess this is a good time to talk about some of the weird quirks about career highlights. Let's use that, the career highlight we just did for an example, where you have to get 10 air Ubers in a run. So in order for those to count, normally you'd think like, as long as you have UBER, then you're able to do Ubers, and so therefore anything you do should count. However, if you are in a jump, like in a state I'm in right now, like let's say I went off a big jump right here and I got 10 Ubers all at once, you'd say, hey, you know, that counts, and you should be right. But there's a really weird quirk of how the game counts it, where if you don't have the S in super collected, none of your Ubers count towards the career highlight. We don't know why this is. Our best theory is that, like, in the early stages of the game, maybe they meant for the super word to be the first thing that gets filled in, so that then the Uber, the next 4, would be the things that you fill in for tier 2. And so maybe that was a thing they had planned early, forgot to change it. It's unknown. But it's a thing we've discovered, and you're able to work around it pretty easily as long as you know it's there. But it can get pretty confusing if you don't know about it. It took a lot of hours in the lab to figure that one out. Another weird, quirky one is the rail length one we did earlier in Metro. So the way that the game considers how long you've been on a rail is it uses the rail trick to measure. So you see at the bottom that yellow text. That is like what comes up when you register a trick. Like you finish it, you're done, and the game is like, all right, you're done. Here's your points. Now the same thing happens with the rail. Check this out. I ride off the rail, and that gives me a trick, 50-50 rail. Now, the only way to get a rail distance to count is to finish a rail like trick, if you will. So normally that'd be fine. You ride a really long rail, you get off it, you get your trick, and your distance is really far, so all good. Now with rail Ubers, a weird part about those is that will actually, if you ride off a rail while doing a rail Uber, it will prevent you from registering a trick when you get off the rail. And what this means is that, let's say you just get off a rail and now you're in the air holding a rail Uber. You aren't on a rail, so the game then resets your rail distance to 0. So if you were on that big long rail that I was on earlier in Metro, and I held a rail Uber at the end of it, and rid off the rail and then finished the rail Uber in the air, I would not get that career highlight. For some reason, that's just how the game tracks the distance you've spent on a rail. It tracks it in conjunction with the trick itself. So you have to be very cognizant when you're doing that career highlight that you don't accidentally do that. If you just like get on the rail and you just start mashing rail Ubers, there's a good chance that you will inexplicably, not on purpose, cause that little quirk to come up, and you'll miss your career highlight. So in reality, again, not a hard thing to plan around, but it is something you need to be aware of. There's a lot of instances of this game of quirky things like that where, you know, you can tell things like, you know, things weren't made perfectly. This isn't while this is my favorite game, I won't act like it's the cleanestly programmed game in the world. Because it's not. It's full of holes and full of bugs, and that's why we love it. And it's important to understand the quirks for what they are. It's like, games are like people like that. You have to love them for what they are.
That was sick.
Hey, you got that first try? Nice. Now, I'd love to have Super here, but unfortunately, it's a little hard to get the Super Uber here, just due to the nature of us taking that wormhole earlier. Still worth it, but, you know. Here we're actually going to be getting yet another career highlight. There is a career highlight for getting 1 million points in an event, and for some reason they have that in there, even though you need to get 1 million points as part of All Peak Jam. So if you do All Peak Jam and you pass it, then you already have that set of career highlights. So that one's a pretty easy one to do. And then I think after this there will only be one more set of career highlights for us to get. That is the knockdowns, which we'll be getting in Snow Jam, and I'll cover those more when we get there. Alright. On to the next fun thing of the run. So we're actually going back to happiness. Because we need to go to happiness as part of a glitch called a dupe. Oh, this is where we're duping flakes, actually. I forgot I mentioned that already. So we have to come to happiness. Basically what we need to do is you need to go from happiness into green station and then dupe, make the game think that you're in green station when you're actually in R&B. Or you could also do it in Snow Jam. It's faster to do it in R&B for the purposes of Hundo. So in order to do this glitch, I'll explain more about it later. But in order to do it, you have to come to happiness. So we split up the big challenges accordingly, just so we can be more efficient. So here's the other airtime challenge. There's another example of we have to keep it under, I think it's 8 seconds. So we're going to be spending a lot of those seconds here. Got a whole bunch of tricks because we want to be coming out of happiness, which we're about to do. Want to have super uber for the dupe setup we're about to do. So essentially the method for quantum tunneling or duping is as follows. Ride from a track through the transition trigger to the load zone, which we're about to hit right now. And then you want to backtrack all the way back to the transition trigger, which we've already hit. It's farther back. Essentially, the way this game loads things is it has 2 load zones. The first one, which we call the transition trigger, basically loads all the peripherals, I'll say, for the track. It'll load the load zone, and it will load like the lights and some of like the other stuff like that. So what we're doing is we hit the load zone, so we loaded green station, but then we're going back to the deload zone to make the game think like, okay, the next load zone we hit will be green station. And normally that would be true because you'd be hitting the load zone for green station next. However, by doing that wormhole we just did, we have bypassed the load zone, similar to what we did with Gravitude. And then we are going to just ride all the way to R&B as normal, and the game is still thinking, okay, the next load zone I hit, that's going to be green station. And we're saying, yes it is, game, yes it is. So now we're in R&B, but the game, as far as it's concerned, it thinks we're in green station. So that counter that we have up in the corner is reflecting the flakes for R&B, when in reality, we're collecting flakes for green station. Now, normally green station is only able to collect 5 flakes in it, but R&B, there are R&B, there's 30. So essentially, we can get 25 more flakes than we'd normally be able to with this glitch. Normally, it would actually waste a lot of time to do this, but by doubling it up with the R&B big challenges, we're able to, again, multitask and make it so that it saves time. We're going to do that, come up here, take this rail backwards. Now we're up here. Now we're going to do a few big challenges here. We are actually going to split it up, where we're not going to be doing all the big challenges in the dupe state. We're only going to be doing some of them, but we are going to be able to get all the flakes we need in the dupe state, because R&B has 2 big challenges. The first one being the one we're doing now, which requires us to get down the track without falling. There are 2 big challenges in R&B that require us to go down the entire length of the track, and this is normally really bad because that's slow, but because of the nature of the dupe, needing us to collect flakes. And also, by the way, these flakes are not counting for our R&B. We're going to have to get all of these flakes again a second time in actual R&B proper. And R&B is a great track for this because it makes you go down the length of the track so many times. You actually can do this without it being too much of an issue. But yeah, so you might be noticing I'm collecting a whole bunch of flakes, and the counter is not reflecting any of them. That's because it is... The counter is looking at the R&B counter, but the game is collecting flakes for Green Station. Well, there are a few flakes here on the left. We're actually not going to be getting them here, because those are a teeny tiny bit risky to get. If we fall even once, we lose this entire big challenge, so while we do need to get as many flakes as we can, you do want to minimize risk as much as possible.
5 times multiplier fire.
Alright, so here we are at the end of the track, and then we're just going to take a quick swing around and backtrack to this big challenge here. Now, normally what you'd do is you would use the session to the bottom of the track and then ride to this as normal. But, a weird quirk of this dupe state that we're in is that those are actually disabled. The ability to session down the track is, I won't say disabled actually. I guess a better way to phrase it is that the game is thinking that we're sessioning like we are in Green Station, and Green Station only has the one session at the top of the track. So it says, alright, so yeah, you can session to the top of the track, and it won't let you session to any of the other sessions you'd normally be able to go to. So one of the byproducts of the dupe is that you're not able to navigate through the track in freeride like you'd normally be able to. So that's partially why we need these big challenges that ride the whole way down the track, is because it lets us duplicate effort, where we already have to navigate like this without sessions. So we can just do that during the dupe, and the lack of sessions is not hampering us at all. So this is the second challenge that requires us to go all the way down the track, and this is, like before, this is just a race. Pretty simple, just make it down by the end of the time. This one can get a little sticky with us getting so many flakes like this, but it shouldn't be a problem. Like I said before, we're fast, we're speedrunners. Come on, we can do anything. We can even raise money for charity. How cool is that? Alright. Come down to the end here. So now, like I said, we can only session to the top of the track, and we're actually done with the dupe now. So what we're going to do is we're going to session to the top of the track, and we're actually going to fix the dupe. And the way we do this is by backtracking to the load zone. Now we've hit the load zone, now everything works as normal. So now we're going to get the rest of the flakes, we're going to get the rest of the big challenges, except you might notice all the flakes are back. Because now we're in actual R&B, and all the flakes are loaded as such. So we're basically getting all of these R&B flakes twice. And there's a lot of flakes in the game that you have to, normally without duping, you'd have to go all the way out of your way for, and it'd be very, very slow. But because we can get 25 extra flakes like this, it lets us skip a lot of slow ones. So those two big challenges there, pretty easy. Just do ride on a rail a couple times. Real quick, rail glitch is a great solution to that. And here we're just doing a tail slide on a rail, if I can get on it the right way. So we're basically using this big challenge to backtrack our way up to a different one while we make progress here. So back earlier on the big challenge we hit that required us to make our way down the track without falling, there's actually two more here. We're going to be doing them now. Now these are just points, so they're a lot faster. Because we have these neat little multipliers here that we can use. We have that one there, then we're going to backtrack in the same way to here. And there's a neat little 10 times here on the left that we'll use for this one. Oops. Okay, I missed that. Let's try coming this way instead. There we go. Alright. That is the last big challenge we needed. Over here. Get the medal. Yeah, so now we're going to be taking very similar routes to what we did in the dupe, because now we need to get all these flakes again. But it's still fast. There we go. Nice little jump there. The fact that I managed to still get on that rail is a miracle. Normally I have a very specific setup where if you hand plant like at one part of the rail, then it gives you just the right amount of speed to land on that very tiny rail. That was not what I meant to do, but hey, it works out, you know. I won't complain. The SSX gods giveth, and the SSX gods taketh away. Go. Good example of if we were in that big challenge, we would have failed just there. Luckily we're not. Quick, select warp is an easy backup for that flake right there. Now that we don't have to worry about falling, easy enough to get that. So that flake we just got, number 20. Fun fact about that one, that actually was not present the first time we were going through this by getting the dupe. You might have noticed if you were observant. The reason for that is because we got a flake earlier in Green Station. Now, each flake is assigned a track-specific value from 1 to, like, 35, let's say. Or 44, I guess. Because that's the maximum number of flakes you can have on a track. Green Station just assigns them 1 through 5, because there's only 5 tracks, or 5 flakes. So let's say you get, I don't need to come this way, I need to go this way. So let's say you get 5 flakes in green station and enter a dupe state R&B. Only 25 flakes will be loaded because as far as the game is concerned, you already got the first 5 flakes. So R&B flakes that are labeled 1 through 5 will be missing. And for some reason, that flake all the way down the track, normally they're the ones that are labeled 1 through 5, like would be early on in the track. That one's a weird exception. So those are actually gone. But the inverse is true too, where getting that flake in R&B then disables it if you go through a green station, like we will be doing later. Oh, the train weirdly there.
Betcha stun.
Uber zone 333.
Come down here, get these 2 flakes again. And now we are good on flakes. We are not good on the point requirement, but we have a handy dandy little 10 times here to help us out.
What a rush!
Really don't need to do 2 Stone Ages there, but you know, it's fun. Alright, so now we're gonna be coming up on Snow Jam, which is the instance of our next quantum tunnel. God, I gotta get better about saying that. This is the instance of our next quantum tunnel. We are gonna be doing the big challenges first, though. This is also the track we're gonna be getting the knockdowns on, so you'll be seeing that as well. And those can fluctuate wildly based on how friendly the AI is feeling that day. This is another instance of we're going to be getting a lot of flakes that we're not normally supposed to get on this big challenge, so the time can be a little tight. Luckily, this is Snow Jam's gates. Snow Jam's gates are the easiest and best because they are short and you only have to do them once, which is great. There we go. Here, grab this. Only have 13 seconds, but we only have 2 more gates. That's 1, and that's 2.
Big challenge completed.
We're gonna navigate backwards up to this one.
I'm liking this.
And in case, because I hadn't mentioned it earlier, we're now in peak 1, so we are actually in the last peak of the game. So we're getting down to it. We're almost done with this.
Big challenge completed.
The essential map.
Big challenge
Okay,
completed.
got that. Just do 4 single button overs there. Again, a few quick flakes here. And a few quick flakes here. This big challenge is going to have us ride the inside of this tunnel. And a quick backtrack for that flake. Now you can get this big challenge done along with the flake, but it's pretty tricky. Okay, I failed there. Where it makes you ride and where that flake is do line up, but just barely, so
Challenge completed.
it is pretty difficult to get those at the same time. So now we're going to be doing the first points challenge. There are 3 of these. And we're going to be using the same rail glitch method that I mentioned earlier to get a lot of points very quickly. But first, we are going to get a few flakes here. Normally, you would get these during the race event, but we're going to be doing the KOs on the only run down Snow Jam, at least for this first half. So for this first part of the run, we don't want to need to get any flakes in the actual race because we're going to be preoccupied with KOs. It is possible to finish the KOs early enough, but that's not a reliable method based on how random, I'll say, the KOs can be, because essentially you have to deal with the randomness behind the computers and their actions. That's a unique thing, though. You don't really have to do other parts of the run. So there, I was trying. The only thing you need to do is ride that that little thing at the end. I knocked down, so it failed me. Easy enough to back up. Just try it again.
Big challenge completed.
Alright, for this one we just gotta do a nose press on these 3 logs. Doesn't matter how long, just as long as we do it at all. But that's nice and quick. So now all we have left is these two trick challenges, and then we're out of here. However, we are going to be doing a backtrack in a similar vein to the one with Gravitude. However, the one in Snow Jam is significantly easier. Like I said before, later peaks just have more difficult terrain in general, and that is not... Speedrunners are not exempt from that difficulty. Alright, now we're going to be going back up to the top of the run. Quick turnaround here. Luckily the load zone for Snow Jam is just right here, so it's nice and quick. Just turn around and keep on going. Now what I'm doing there, that's a 540. It's good to build up speed in long stretches like that. Alright, so now we're going to be doing a backtrack again. Except we're going a little bit farther. Jump over this little ledge here. Alright, now we've hit the transition trigger. Head back here. Now we're in this weird state again. Now we're going to get our KOs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay. Those went exceptionally well. That is about as fast as you could possibly ask for. And getting it that good, I'll be honest, is extremely rare. So I'm very happy with that. But yeah, so the reason I could tell where he was coming is the little triangles on the left-hand side. You can see where the other characters are relative to yourself. And you can also see where they are on your left or right based on if they are to the left or the right of the bar. It's not entirely reliable, but it's a good little indicator, and as long as you have a general idea of their position, that is a pretty handy tool you can use. So now we're just making our way down the track in as many flakes as we can. Gonna be skipping this one for now until I have a better idea of my flake count. Oops, missed that one. That's okay. We're gonna need to take a flake detour later. That's okay. So yeah, we're just getting as many flakes as we can now, and then we're gonna hit a wormhole real quick, get past the finish line, and do what we did with Gravitude, where we're gonna navigate an unloaded blue station, and we're gonna end up in Junction while tricking the game into thinking that we're still in Snow Jam. It is actually possible to do a quantum tunnel in Freeride, but one of the... Second. Oops. Alright, messed that up. Now, normally here, I'd probably just restart, or not restart, I'd probably just ride through the next two heats as normal. But for the purposes of the marathon, I'll be trying the glitch again to try and just to show it off. Fortunately for us, there are other wormholes we can take besides that one that will achieve the same effect.
Listen up, y'all! Aerial assassin! High sky breaker!
Let's see if we can get into this. Looks like we got it. Alright, so this is an interesting wormhole. You, for some reason, do not need to do anything. You can sit here and fall. As long as you want, you can do a trick. Do a Stone Age. Do an Executioner. Doesn't matter. We can do whatever we want. And the game will not care. So, this is the only wormhole like this as far as I know. And as this backup, which again, you would not do in a run, but for a marathon setting, it's good as backup to show off the trick. We're going to be taking this until the counter on the left, that percentage under the bar, until that says about 93 or so. Fun fact, if you actually warp early, like let's say around now, if I warped now, for some reason it would warp me to around the session, the end of the track session. But it would disable the finish line for some reason. We don't know why. It's not fast for the purposes of this trick, but it is an interesting little quirk we know about. Alright, now that the bar on the left has disappeared, so now we're going to restart. Now we're going to navigate unloaded blue station. Probably be quiet for a second here. takes a little bit longer to get through. There we go. Now we're in Junction. Now, as you'll notice, the skybox is a little funky. Oh my god. How many do we need to do? Wow. Messed up the last one. So normally you need to do three heats here, but because we messed up and we did one earlier, we only have to do two. So now we have Snow Jam Metal. And we have that weird quirk with that cutscene happening in the void. So now we're gonna go to Happiness Race. And things are gonna look a little different from the last time we were in Happiness. This is probably the most dramatic example of this effect. And we're also going to come here and do a wormhole that has a bit of a different requirement behind it. We have to use the stick to change our stance instead of the D-pad. This is significantly harder than the D-pad. Because the game will tilt your board in one direction automatically when you leave a cliff. So you need to not only move your stick left and right, but also the slightest amount of up and down to account for that little change. It's very precise and very difficult, but we do it 3 times because we're crazy. The real reason is that this wormhole is very fast compared to the hand plant alternative that exists. Stay in here for 50 seconds. I think this is good enough. Oops. Slow up.
Loose cannon coming through!
Alright. Now we're going to... Let me just check here. Alright, looks like we are good on everything. The only thing we still don't have is collectibles, so we need 23 more. Okay. Have to keep that in mind. 23. And now it's fixed. This is part of the run I'll probably be a little bit more quiet for. Just because it requires a little bit more focus. Unloaded parts of the quantum tunnels as well I'll probably be a bit more silent for, so I can remember the inputs right. Those are pretty tricky as well. Should be good there. You only need to be in that wormhole for 50 seconds. I extend it to like 52 to 55 to be safe for the run and also just to be safe for the marathon setting.
Getting all rowdy! Too much good!
So now we're going to be doing another example of an early exit. This one is one of the hardest in the game. I would say probably the hardest one. Just requires a very specific series of inputs, and also just you need to catch the terrain just right. So it starts right here. Gonna hand plant this, jump off this cliff, and I hit that little bit of terrain, so that's not gonna work. Need a little bit more speed than that. I fell too far, so that one's pretty good. Let's see if it works. Right, looks like we're good. Alright, there we go. Nailed it. And everyone applauds and cheers. So now we're going into the last track of the game, or the last track we haven't been to yet, at least. Crow's Nest. Pretty simple, pretty easy. Big air, nothing too crazy going on here. Just gonna fly through it real quick. Alright. We are nearing the end of this. Well, this series of big challenges is just going to have us hit these balloons, and we're going to hit the balloons while getting a lot of tricks. Then we're going to hit the balloons while doing specific tricks. Nothing too crazy. So fun fact to look out for on this next one. When we are passing under the bridge, look on the right side of the bridge, and there's a little Easter egg. You will see the SSX Tricky logo on the corner. Try and point it out if you see it. There it is, on the right. A little fun Easter egg thrown in by the developers. Alright, now I want you to look towards the left of the track. All the way into the distance there, you see some cars driving. Fun little fact about that is that you can actually make it all the way to where those cars are. It is rideable terrain. It will not reset you. And the cars are all super tiny to make it look like they're in the distance. You can ride on them. The fun fact, the road is actually a functioning rail for some reason, which is kind of fun. At least part of it, I think. And then these big challenges just gotta get enough air time and then you're good. Or not air time, air height. Elevation.
Time to get paid.
There we go. One more. One more and then we're done with big challenges. How cool is that? There we go. Oops. I mean to do a flip there. So there's only 2 flakes on Crow's Nest, and we already got them earlier. So we now get to just fly through this track Again, this is peak 1, so the points requirements are really low. So we can just absolutely fly through this one. Just a quick Stone Age will do the trick. Stone Age, and we are good. Rest coming over to challenges again, which we will take up. Actually, let me, real quick. 404. Okay. So we have 21 to go. Alright, so this is the heat in happiness that we are going to be getting all of our flakes in. I want to get 21 specifically. One. 2.
Another helping a huge
3. So I think we are going to need to go out and get some more flakes, because I think we missed a solid handful. 4.
Bring me the cash.
5. 6.
Essential.
For happiness gem, you really only need around 80,000 points or so. So the point requirement is very low. We don't really have to worry about it too much. We're going to be trying something a little weird here. This is a trick that could allow us to get an extra flake. We don't normally do this, but this is a good backup if you need flakes. Did we get it? Oh, it's just on the line there. Oh, dang it. Just missed it. There's a flake up there we can get, but that's okay. I think we're gonna need to go back for some anyway, so that's okay. No, something fortunate about this is that I think happiness is the track with the most skipped flakes in it. Oops, missed that one. So it's actually not that bad to back up this run, where if you need a couple extra flakes like I do, it's not that bad to just get some of the ones you skipped in happiness, since you're already here. Alright, let's see. How many do we have? Okay, so we need 6 more. We can get 6 more. First of all, let's go to session 2. Got one here.
No holding back.
There we go. Go to bottom of the run. There's a few we can get down here. Oh, we could technically get that in the Peak 1 jam, but no sense risking it. That's this one, so we can just go back and get this. Alright, how many do we need? 2 more, alright. I know somewhere we can get 2 more pretty easily. Could get 2 more there, but there's a faster 2 we can get here. Skip these earlier. We can get them now. There are 2 flakes. We're on this side that we skipped. Poor little guys never get to see the light of day. But today, oh, they are the stars. There we go. That is all the flakes. Now we just need Peak 1 gem, and then we're good. This comes to a close. We're doing the God Wormhole one more time. Oh, oops. That's an example of me messing that up. So now, as a backup, we're gonna go do the hand plant wormhole. I'm just trying to show off more parts of the game. This one can be pretty finicky to get in, which is why we don't usually do it, besides the fact that it's slow. Especially when it comes to this. Kind of get locked in a little weird place here. Not getting the right grip on it. That's the wrong way. Alright, well let's just ride down the track like normal. We don't want to spend too much time faffing with something that isn't working. Okay, now I do not want to get this flake. Because if I get that flake, I will prevent myself from getting 100%. Remember, we already have 425, and you don't want to get 426. And that is because if you get 426, it will actually, your overall percentage will loop down, actually. So if you have everything else, you only have, and you have 426 out of 425 flakes, you will actually have only 99%, and you will not be able to ever get to 100%. There's no way to decrease your overall flake count.
Drop your linen and start grinning.
Alright, gonna be doing another early exit here. Normally this would take us into R&B, but R&B is a bit of a long track, so we don't like it. So we're going to be doing a bit of a different wormhole, or different early exit to achieve the same thing. It's a different method, but we are going to be going to the same place. That won't work. And this one can also be a little finicky, so bear with me here. There we go. Please don't warp me. Alright. And applause. And everyone cheers. Last trick of the game.
Winner takes all.
Uber zone 3.
Alright, that's it. %. That is the run. That is my submission. I hope you like it as much as I do. This game's a ton of fun, got a lot of super interesting tech. Pretty much everyone's already heard about this game and knows about it and loves it. So I think this is gonna be the kind of thing people see this on the list and be like, "Oh shit, SSX3! I haven't heard about that in a while. Let me check that out." So, thank you so much for watching, and I will hopefully talk to you later.